Welcome to Roxanne and Robin's podcast, episode 7, bringing you the people, the ideas and the passion behind the Flat Earth community and all those that are making a difference today. Why did we start this podcast, you might ask? Well, we wanted to get involved with the community, to signpost outstanding members and to connect community to those who inspire them. And stick around because today we're going to be covering faking space, the moon landing hoax, podcasts, TFR radio shows, and much, much more. So, Roxanne, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Had another busy week?
Admittedly, there's a lot of interesting bits and pieces going on. Involved with a few bits and pieces this week, but other than that, all good. How are you doing?
Cool, yeah. Well, lots going on, obviously. I mean, this week I've been visiting the Pioneer Centre in Kidderminster, the venue for this year's Global Convention in September. I went to test the Wi-Fi, I went to test the mobile phone signal, the PA equipment. We got some menus for vegan, vegetarian options. And I did the all-important down payment. I let it go to the very end so I can mark it to my heart's content. And the other thing I did, which was really exciting, was I went into Bewdley nearby. It's about a 15-minute drive. And I found the venue for the after party. So the George Hotel in Bewdley is a fantastic place. It's got great outdoor seating, benches. Inside, there's loads and loads of seating. You can see it just filling up with 200 people quite easily. If the weather's with us, we'll spill out outside. And it's just a delightful little village down the road from the Pioneer Centre. So we'll be putting on free coaches that will shuttle us back and forth. So those that want a drink, which would be most of us, I guess, will leave the car where it is and come back by the coach. But one thing I've noticed about the whole area is the Airbnb and hotel prices are so cheap. You know, compared to city centres, you're looking at £60 to £70 for a double room. Yeah. And the George Hotel itself was £60 odd. So get in there quick, guys. If you want to book somewhere decent, look out for the George Hotel in Bewdley, because that's where we're all going to finish up. So a good place, you know, you can perhaps get a Uber back in the morning. Great. What else has been happening? So we announced Martin Leaker as a speaker last week. So I was thrilled to bits. Martin did a little promo for me and it went live everywhere. So I'm really looking forward to that, because he's planning to do a segment on the greatest story never told, but also he's going to introduce.
However, though, I will just correct you there. Sorry, it's not going to be the greatest story never told. I don't know if you kept up with the community sections, but Martin has got a few other suggestions. So if you go and check out his channel, check out the community section of his channel and go and look at the recommendations he's come up with, please click on one of those suggestions and help him out. So he's got seemingly the greatest story never told has been taken.
That's right, yeah.
So yeah, check out the community section of his page and get involved with having your 2 cents worth in there. He's got some good suggestions. I picked one. Have you?
Very good. The other thing he's going to do is present his tourist field model at plane, which is fascinating. He did a double up with Martin Kenny not so long ago, and it just went off the scale. Connections. They had the same sort of ideas. It was brilliant. But what I love about Martin is he spoke in the April convention in Birmingham, and he's such an entertaining, a good speaker. You know, he's bags of confidence, loads of sense of humour. Such a lovely person. So I know everyone's going to love Martin speak. So looking forward to that. Wow. Another little thing that happened today is another media student that's approached me to do a documentary from Bath University, no less. So that's good. So we're going to start announcing more speakers shortly on the convention. Good. So every other Friday, we'll be announcing an Amsterdam speaker, and then back in the UK, we'll announce one of ours.
Awesome. Awesome. Thinking of announcements, have you seen of what Jason's found recently? Because I've got the spec on it, if you want to know.
Yeah, go on. What's he found?
So he's found a camper van. And it's it's just something he's speculatively looking at just now. But this camper van would be a kind of 6-seater, 6-berth, 3-litre. I think it's about a 5-ton I think it's got a water tank, oven, grill, microwave, central heating, bike rack, shower, barbecue point, LPG gas, Sky TV, canopy, chairs. I think it's got like a 10-foot awning, 2 lounges. Two lounges. Okay, not 1, 2. So yeah, amazing. Keep your ears to the ground on that. He's now having a look at bits and pieces. So that is sounding promising. That is sounding much more doable than the last one.
Do you remember what I said last time about it being the adventure holiday of a lifetime? I'm in.
Really, exactly.
So
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, remember Dr. John D? Something's coming up this weekend, isn't it? Or
yes, 2nd and 3rd February. So the observation's going to be done on the Brighton Beach, just by the I-360, with Dr. John D and many other people. If you want to check out more information to do with that, go to www.peer-to-peer.exp. So peer, I'll spell it for you, www.peerexp.com. We'll put the link in the description of this as well, in the show notes, and also in the chat room when it's on YouTube. Go on that website to register your interest, and you'll be sent the details about where and when to meet them. Make sure you dress up warm and dry with wellies. I think your connection, the lady, is her name Holly?
That's right.
Yeah, the media student. I think she's registered with her partner to come down and film the event. So that is going to be a good look. I'm going to be going. Dave Marsh is going to be going. I think Adam Meakin's going to be there as well. We're going to get the kids involved. I think me and Dave are going to bring our kids with us. So
fantastic.
And I think Dr. John's kids will be involved as well. So there should be a good half a dozen kids involved in this observation. So good job.
Can I just say something? We've had who have we had? We've had Conspiracy Cats join in various hangouts recently. So if you're listening now, you need to go, Al. You need to be there. You need to what? You need to go and witness this. If you're a man of integrity and you want to back up all your words with actions, you need to go. And you should message Simon, Dan, and Mick West and anyone else. You should get yourself down there. Otherwise, if you don't, what's it going to say about you and everyone else?
There's various different ways where people can kind of get, up-to-date information. I know, like I said, Adam from Iron Realm Media. We're also going on there quite regularly to give everybody updates on what's going on with the conventions, with Dee and Gary as well, yourself, Jason, myself, with the UK one and the tour. So if you haven't done so already, go and check out Iron Realm Media, click the subscribe button, hit the bell, so that you're notified. They've got their Having a Spear show on Friday. There's 2 episodes, one at 10:30 and one at midnight, both an hour and a half each. I strongly suggest you watch them on the Friday or whenever you can catch up. It's definitely worth it.
And Dr. John D's channel is Dr. John D, and he's got his experiment breakdown, various couple more recent updates on his channel. So make sure you go there to have a look and find out a bit more if you wonder what it's all about. And the website we've just mentioned, peer-to-peer.exp, that is .com. So anything else?
A couple of other bits and pieces as well. I just want to mention how much support we've been getting from all around the continent, all across Europe. Massive thank you to everybody who's reached out so far. If you haven't done so already, please go and check out www.globalize.co.uk, register your interest and get in touch. We want to encourage everybody from every capital city that we're going to come out and interact with people. And if you've got local knowledge of the area, that's brilliant, and join forces with other people that have done so already. So please do get in contact.
So finally, I just wanted to say Sam and Lisa who come to my Bristol meetup. They volunteered themselves. So well done, Sam. Well done, Lisa. We know Lisa made it last time. Sam was trying to hightail it back from a holiday during the Globe Life the last few dates. He made it to the finale, but he wanted to get on the street. So he's a very capable guy.
That reminds me as well.
Yeah.
Lisa's event is later on Saturday the 2nd in Glastonbury.
That's right.
I'll give you all the information to put in the description for that as well. Lisa's event on Saturday, February the 2nd.
Good catch. Well done. So I think on that note, we'll break for a bit of music and let's listen to a bit of ODD, Roxanne. And when we come back from the break, We'll have a very special guest, Paul, on the plane.
You don't really understand sometimes what a terrible burden it is to know some of the things that I know. To try to wake people up and impart this knowledge to them. And find out that they just have walls built in front of them. They want to be slaves.
Now I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
ODD TV. Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. For instance, NASA is the world's largest magic show. 9/11 was a planned demolition and Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man, are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you. There's nowhere you can even hide, they'll find you. Illuminati all-seeing eye right behind you. It's about time you find out we're being lied to. They're attempting to control the mind that's inside you. Hide you from the power that designed you. Does anybody have a problem with this? Well, I do. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. They're lying to us about everything. How can this be? I know I'm not crazy, and yet I'm questioning my sanity. I see what the Illuminati's doing to humanity. The truth is stranger than fiction. We're living in a fantasy. What I'm witnessing is unreal. It's a one-way battle for us cattle going uphill. If we don't stand and fight now, then no one will. Our children will never know freedom. It's a done deal. The future's not looking so promising. It's the poor who go to war while the rich keep on profiting. It's us that they're slaughtering and money that they're honoring. And soon it's gonna be the new world order that they're offering. It's mind-boggling how so many don't seem aware. And if they are, it's like they really just don't even care. Our world is broken and I'm hoping it can be repaired. But we'll have to fight for it, so just be prepared. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof.
Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
Hey there, Paul on the Plane here. Hope you're enjoying this episode of Roxanne and Robin's podcast, Flat Earth Cognitive Liberty, Truth, Freedom, as much as I am. I'd like to also take this opportunity to personally invite you to check out my weekly podcast, Dome Life with Paul on the Plane, where my guests and I discuss the latest topics and happenings in the ever-expanding, ever-growing Flat Earth community as citizens of plain Earth awaken to the globe deception and discover the growing body of empirical evidence that logically and reasonably points us to a conclusion that God's creation, our home, is flat and motionless. New episodes of my podcast are released every week and are available exclusively on my website, paulandtheplane.com, and also on the SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify podcast platforms. So be sure to add Dome Life with Paul on the Plane to your weekly Flat Earth content listening routine. And drop me a line if you'd like to be a part of a future episode. I'd love to hear your Flat Earth story. Thanks for listening. Much love across the plane, and stay flat. Dome Life with Paul on the Plane. Check it out on my website, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.
Okay, welcome back to Roxanne and Robin's podcast, episode 7. And our very special guest today is Paul from Paul on the Plane. So how are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Looking forward to it.
You're very welcome. So you come from Washington, is that right?
The PNW, as we say, Pacific Northwest. That's right.
Awesome. So let me just read out some of the bodies of work that you've done, Paul. So you have an awesome channel. So that's Paul on the Plane on YouTube. You're on Truth Frequency Radio with a regular show. That's TFR Live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. You have a website, paulontheplane.com. And some of your bodies of work on YouTube, I'm just reading some out here. The Faking Space series, the Moon Landing Hoax. You've spoken at the US conference as a speaker. You have an awesome podcast called Dome Life. And is there anything else that I should be mentioning here?
I have a huge team of people behind me, so I give them all the credit.
Awesome. Well, it's a real pleasure to have you on, Paul, because I've been following you for some time, and we're going to come into a bit more depth on your work later on in the podcast. But Roxanne, if you don't mind, do you want to fire away some questions?
Yes, I would. I've actually got the lister link for my arm. But the one thing that I wanted to go into was Ireland, because you were able to do a live link with us at the end of the Globe Live Tour from Ireland with Nora, and I'm really interested to know about your connection from Ireland. Could you possibly emphasize a little bit with us about what your connection with Ireland is?
100% of the blame goes to my lovely wife, who is Irish. So so her mom's side of the family, all over there in Ireland. So we go there a few times a year. And this last time, when I was planning the trip over there, I was like, we need to do a meetup because there's probably a whole bunch of flat earthers in Dublin that I haven't met yet. So threw it out there and picked a date that I knew I was going to be in town. And, I sent the details to Mark Sargent. He puts it on his channel, and we all kind of advertise it, throw it in groups, and start spreading the word. And it just happened to coincide. And that wasn't planned at all with your guys' big night, the end of the tour. And that was cool that we're able to do that. So it was a lot of fun.
It was. I'm glad that we mentioned Nora as well, because that meetup, I felt that really, just off of the back of the guys going through there as well, I felt like that had caused a bit of a buzz. The fact that the tour had been through there and there was actually a meetup going on, I felt like it put Ireland on the map.
Wow, if it did, as far as I know, I was asking people there. I said, "Have there's ever been any meetups in Ireland before?" And I'm sure there has been, probably at some level, but maybe not one that was that publicized or something like that. So if that was the case, then great. And talking to Nora now, I know that she has been in touch with a lot of folks. We obviously all traded names and email addresses, and they started a Facebook group with the people that were there. So hopefully a start of something down the road. So that'd be cool.
Nice. And regarding your pursuit of truth, can you tell us how you got to where you are today, starting with the investigation into that pursuit of truth?
Again, I'm going to blame my wife. 100%. She came home one day. It was a little over 2 years ago now. And she said, "Hey, I was, she's in Facebook groups or whatever it was." And she said, "Did you know that there's people that think the earth is flat?" That's where it all started. I'd never heard those two words together, at least in memory. And I was like, scoffed at it like we all do, and said it's ridiculous. First thing I thought of was pictures from space. And I said, how can they think that these days, And we went on. We didn't talk about it very long. We both laughed at the whole idea, the whole premise, and went on about talking about our days. But there was a seed planted in the head. It was a few days later. It was still bugging me. Like, how can people think that? So I jumped online and I started and I went on YouTube and I searched for Flat Earth, and I found Eric Dubay and ODD. And, this was in late 2016, October 2016. So that was really where it started for me. 3 or 4 days later of some sleepless nights, and I was like, makes sense. I was a quick and easy sell. I've always questioned, going into that whole time period, I already questioned the moon landing. I questioned 9/11. I questioned these things. I was big into anti-vaccine and eating and GMOs and all those things I was aware of. But this was the kind of the next step for me. Yeah. So I took it to like a fish to water. And so that kind of what led me to faking space, without trying to jump ahead too much. But that was that was my first objection to the truth about the nature of our world, is that we had pictures from space. And that's what led me to that series. I really wanted to create something that potentially would help people start to question that aspect. If that was their objection about the world being anything but a sphere is flying through space, I wanted to show that those are not photographs, if that was their objection. So that's where it started for me.
Wow. Full ratings to your other half. For you to mention your other half in connection to Ireland and to you starting your pursuit of truth, I've got to say, shout out to the partners out there that are getting their partners questioning what they've been taught.
That's right.
Brings me on the next thing I want to ask you about, with what I'm doing here with Robin, I want to ask you about your co-host, Noxie. I want you to tell us about Noxie and how that all came about.
Noxie, so we met on Facebook. It wasn't until just this last November in Denver, the first time that he and I, got a hug and shake hands, in real life, because it had all been online. But simply, it was a case of I saw a lot of conversations that he was having with other people on the subject of gravity in Facebook chats, and it just struck me as some guy that's done his research, knew what he was talking about. Was talking about experiments that he had done. That's what I look for, empirical stuff we can do at home. Not something you read in a book and then you take it on faith. So I reached out to him and just said I wanted to know more, and we got to talking and developed a friendship. And it was many months later that the Truth Frequency Radio opportunity came up. And I didn't want to just be an hour of me. At the time, it was just a 1 hour show. I didn't want 1 hour of me just, on my soapbox, like you guys have done here. I wanted dynamic of two people, and Noxie's the first guy I thought of. So I asked him, and he said, yeah, he'd love to do it. And that was pretty much it. So we sat down, started planning out the show and what it was going to be like. And we went from there. It was, he was the first guy I asked, and I'm glad he said yes.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. I'm glad you kind of shared that with us, because you know what? It's nice how organic these kind of collaborations happen. I feel like some of us do quite a few dances before we end up dancing the dance that we're doing just now. Does that make sense? Because, I felt like when I woke up, I came to a particular plateau, and I just felt like that was it. That was the level playing field everybody was on. But then I realized that it's not as simple as that. And, you have to kind of still navigate your way through things. And it's nice when you meet people that you can collaborate with and have like a good working, but you know what I mean? A good working relationship with, where you can talk about things and share awareness about things in a good way. So thank you for that.
So
you bet.
Paul, tell us how you went from just discovering the truth about Flat Earth to creating loads of content the way you have. How did that start off?
It started when, after a month or two of doing a lot of watching of videos and reading and just thinking, obviously, and seeing the world through a different lens. It's funny I would say lens, because I decided to go buy a Nikon P900 because I had to go and see these things for myself. I was watching a lot of videos around long distance photography and seeing what you can see, based on the alleged size of the globe that we live and the math that goes with that. So I went out and purchased a Nikon P900 and started doing some long distance photography and video and that sort of thing. And I decided to start throwing them up on YouTube. Wanted to connect with other people that were doing the same thing. And that's really where it started. A lot of those videos that I started putting up there, I've taken down just because they were total amateur hour. But that's where things started for me. And then Really, my first big test that I did or observation I made is down in on Lake Tahoe on the border of California and Nevada. I was down there for business. It was March 1st, 2017. And I did a little bit of research before I went because I knew the lake was 22 miles long and I wanted to make an observation over a body of water for obvious reasons. And I had seen those pictures. Let me rephrase that. Those images from space from NASA that show Lake Tahoe with a big curve to it. From north to south end. And so my hypothesis is that I parked myself on the north end, that I could not see the two casinos at the south end of the lake based on that picture. So I did the math and that sort of thing, and I didn't expect to be able to see them. If anything, I could maybe see the top floor or two of these casinos that are about 220 feet tall or so. So when I got there, that's what I did. I drove around to the north end of the lake and I sat down right on the beach with my tripod in the water, and I sat down. So I measured about 23 inches above the surface of the lake was where my camera sat, and I pointed across. Took me a while, but eventually I found them, and there were the two casinos, and I could see about 3/4 of them. And that's what I needed to be able to do for myself. And so I made quite a long video of all of my observations and measurements and where I was and GPS coordinates and all of that, threw that out there. And that was kind of my first big test. And went from there.
Awesome. So tell us how you got into the whole beating NASA up and pulling down their work and exposing them for what we all know they are. How did that start?
It was a gentleman by the name of Archer Sage. I don't know if you guys would remember him or not, but he and I connected because I saw that he was producing some content related to images that the space agencies had been sending. So I reached out to him and I wanted to learn what tools he was using. I wanted to gain an understanding really of, what he was seeing, and start on that path. So we had lots of conversations back and forth and decided that we could use my channel as a platform for that. So we collaborated on a lot of that work, and he provided a lot of the FTP sites where you could download the images that were supposedly, we were told that yes, everything is processed, but at the end of the day, these are the ones that should be legit, that you want to analyze, not ones that are shared on a like a news story, or something like that had maybe gone through a couple layers of editing. These were as close to the originals as you could get from the NASA FTP site and these other space agencies, their FTP site. So that's where we would go. Mm-hmm. And we would download these images and put them into these tools, which are all free, that anybody can download and use. And that was the whole premise for the series, was that it doesn't take any background in photography. It doesn't take any special skills or any experience. You can download these free tools and you could take these images. Here's the links, and you can put them into these tools and you can do the same exact analysis that we are. Tell me if you get any different results, right? I mean, that's science. It should be reproducible, should be repeatable. The observations should be the same. And that's exactly what we did. So we started that series out and started picking apart mainly the images of the Earth that and where we started with NASA satellites, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is one that was launched to the moon and is going around the moon taking pictures. And every once in a while, it gets a shot of the Earth. So we analyze those. And then the next one was the Discover satellite, the Deep Climate Observatory. Deep Space Climate Observatory is the Discover, and their Epic camera, the Earth Polychromatic Imaging Camera. And they supposedly give us images of the Earth like every 30 minutes. And so we downloaded all of those, or a lot of those, and ran the same analysis. And that's really what almost the first season of Faking Space is all of the images that we get from those two analyzed. And
I want to really dive a bit deeper into that, because one of the first videos that really caught my attention was the Himawari space satellite. And why don't you just give the listeners a breakdown of why it is absolutely fake as hell?
Well, that one specifically is not a NASA satellite. It's from the Japanese.
Okay.
And but it has ties, and that's what you will find in the video, that it all basically goes through NASA and the National Oceanographic, I'm trying to say it, NOAA, Atmospheric Agency, NOAA.
Okay.
Everything kind of runs through there and the supercomputer. And the reason that it has to run through there is because the Himawari, which I think we get those images, they say like every 10 or 15 minutes of the Earth. And that's a set of images that we get that a lot of people will point to saying, well, this has to be real because look, the weather is exactly what you'll see locally in real time. So that's a tough one for a lot of people to overcome, because that would appear to be real then, right? If the weather seems to match up with what you see out your window or what you see on the local news, then that's going to be a hard one to debunk, so to speak.
And before you go into the explanation, I must just insert here that people like Joe Rogan, Mick West, and a UK troll called Gem Panda have put together various attacks on anyone who thinks the images of Earth from space are faked, and they always cite the Himawari because it's this regular snapshot of the Earth, allegedly. So why don't you break us down on why isn't that a genuine set of pictures?
Sure. You'll notice that the space agencies don't, especially NASA, don't ever use the word photographs. They'll always say images. And there's a reason for that. It's because they are CGI. And here's how you can tell. You take a photograph that you would take with your camera, and you'll drop it into these forensic tools, and you'll find that there's noise all over the whole photo. And you'll find that there's ambient light coming from the object that you are taking a picture of. I'm talking about like if you took a picture of the moon or something like that. I would encourage people that were watching the Wolf Blood Moon recently to, take those pictures that you took and drop them into these tools and see how they react to the functions like noise and ambient light. And then take the same images from NASA and the Himawari and drop them in there and see how they react. And you're going to find that they are computer graphics, because they're not going to have any noise in the dark areas, and they're not going to have any ambient light coming from the objects. And so that goes for all of these images. Now, the Himawari specifically, you find no noise, and you find no ambient light. There should be a ton of ambient light coming from the Earth. It should be way more than from the moon, because of the atmosphere and from all of the oceans. They should be much more reflective from the sun than the moon would ever be. But you're not going to find any ambient light in those. You're going to find that all of these images are on a black background. Just to paste it onto a black background. You're not going to react at all like your camera would, like any camera would, shooting across space with all that darkness, with all that blackness. So that's number one. But specifically what the Himawari does in this set of images that we get from them is it is tied into the NOAA supercomputers, which take all of the data worldwide from all of the Doppler radar from all around the world, all of the different Doppler radar stations it's plugged into. Those are all crunched as they come in real time from all the stations around the world. And you can go right onto the site, and the FTP site, and you could even see there where it talks about the NOAA and basically how they do it and what the reference map is that they use, which is the blue marble, back from the 2008 or 9 or whatever it is, or 2002 originally. So all of the data is there. You just got to dig in, and you can find exactly how they do it. But the NOAA then supercomputer takes all of the real-time Doppler data. The NOAA supercomputer again takes all the Doppler data and in real time, and it puts it and just pastes it right onto the blue marble data set. And that's listed right in there. So you can see that because Doppler radar is only over land, because it uses radar. Okay. And you'll be able to see especially on the coast of North America and South America, you'll see all these clouds come up. And then what they'll do is there's a line right along the border. And it's the west Pacific coast of South America. When you look at these images, you'll see that the clouds always start right on the border. Okay. And then they go across. And that's because they have to simulate the weather over the oceans. And that's how they do that. So they're simulating the weather over the oceans. And it even says, again, that the weather simulation goes up to the year like 2099 or something like that. So they simulate the weather over the oceans using the forecast models. And then the over the land, it's all real-time Doppler radar.
I get it.
Every 15 minutes.
So one of the things that really struck me was you actually went, for those that know a bit about IT, you went on the web server essentially, where you weren't displaying a web page, but you were into the file system behind the web page, and you had an index of files there that were going to be used. And wasn't there a README file, like a text file, that explained what all of these files were? That was a huge red flag for me.
That's where a lot of this information comes from. When you get into the FTP server, there'll be a folder, and a lot of times there's a README text file in there. Wow. And it's telling you exactly what the folder is for and how they do it. It's a lot of times it's just in black and white. So that's why we always include the link in all the videos, and people can go check it out for themselves. It's right there on their computer screen.
Why don't you break down the LRO?
The LRO, the first few videos of the series, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, was a satellite, I believe, that was launched. I'm trying to remember the date now. They're all kind of swimming around in my head. Probably like 2009 or 2000. I think it was like 2009, 2010. And when it was only supposed to go for about a year or two, they were hoping it would go 2 years.
Right.
It's still sending us images now, they tell us, 8 years later or whatever. So, but the point of that was to study the surface of the moon. And every once in a while, they say that we would get an Earthrise image. So they say that the cameras are always pointed down, studying the surface of the moon, but occasionally they'll turn it up to calibrate or something like that, and they'll catch an image of the Earth. So we took those Earthrise images and we analyzed those. And again, we would compare it to what a real photograph, how it would react to things like noise functionality and ambient light and things like that. And so that's where we would find the LRO specifically. There's a couple of images that are very interesting. I encourage people to go check out the first couple of videos. There was one set of images from the same date that they had on their LRO site, and then the other one was their FTP site. And the ones on it was the Arizona State University website where the LRO gallery lives. If you compare the two Earthrise images from the same day, the one, I believe, on the ASU website has a mountain removed. Okay. Really? So if you compare the two side by side, they completely removed a huge peak that was on the side of the image. It was totally removed. And then when you put those images into any photo editing program and you turn up the gamma brightness, that's where you see that they have a box around the Earth, and so you can tell they pasted the images on, and then they tilted it.
So which package do you use? Is it Lightshop?
No, I just use, again, I wanted to use something that was free that anybody could download and use, so I use Photoscape. So yeah, so we put all the links for Forensically, which is the tool you can use to look for noise and ambient light, and I use Photoscape just to increase brightness and gamma brightness in the photo, and the boxes show up. So obviously the Earth is pasted in there onto this CGI image of the moon, because they were able to remove mountains too. So there's a lot of manipulation going on, and that's the whole point of the series, just that there's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of anomalies. And if this was all true, then everything should line up. Everything, if these images, they shouldn't not have to be manipulated or changed. And when you increase the gamma brightness on some of them, you can see they try to remove the box by using like a healing tool out of Photoshop or something like that, where they try to rub the box out, but it's a real rough edge, and then it just opens up at the bottom. Like they kind of got like 3/4 of the way done with the job, and then we're just like, nobody's going to look at this. Just send it, or just upload it. No, but don't worry about it. It's ridiculous. So,
well, going back to the Himawari and how they just exposed that file system for all to see. I remember when I was in my first software testing job, we were adamant you had to lock it down with security, and no one should be able to just trim some of the URL away and expose all the file systems. So that's just such a schoolboy error. Crazy, really.
Well, there's two schools of thought on that, well, first of all, people will say, well, they have to show us it. I mean, it's public domain, right? Okay. I mean, it's taxpayer money, so it should be out there. But you start digging in and you go, boy, it's just so obvious that there's complete shenanigans going on here. Are they doing this on purpose, or are they just that lazy and incompetent? That's a whole nother show.
So tell us that you've got the Fake in Space series. For someone who's meeting you for the first time tonight, listening to this, how would you break down some of the elements of that series for them?
Well, it has a lot of NASA, obviously, in the satellites there. I have one on the SpaceX Roadster in space. I mean, I couldn't leave that one alone. That was a fun one. Mm-hmm. And then the other space agencies, there's a common misconception that they are all operating independently and they have nothing to do with each other. And that, if this was all true, all these, these flat earth theories and, that they're faking space, then all of the space agencies would be, have to be in on it. Well, you can obviously argue that till you're blue in the face, but let's go and look at some of the images. And we did the same analysis with JAXA, the same analysis with Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, ESA, and these other ones. And they all do the same thing. They had all the same problems that NASA has as well. So there is inconsistencies across the government space agencies. It's not just one. They all have their problems. And so that was another part of the series, is that we would touch on those other space agencies. And then I got into the moon stuff.
Fantastic.
The moon hoax landing.
I will say, if anyone wants to take anyone on or is trolled or wants to debate or wants to signpost any material that pulls NASA apart, then Paul, your work is certainly that. Especially if I think of the Joe Rogans, the Mick Wesson, the Jem Pandas, who's one of the UK trolls here, they do such a bad job of trying to attack the thinking that how can anyone question these images from space? Go ahead, Roxanne.
Yeah, I've got something to add here. Well, mentioning trolls and stuff. I know that you can possibly envelop on this somewhat, Paul. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for joining us the other day while we were interviewing Dr. John Dee. And I know that you've done an interview with him yourself. I want to know if you can emphasize a little bit on how you're perceiving the situation with Dr. John Dee at the moment with the observations, because I'm going to go on the 2nd of February. I know that you're advocating for what's going on as well, because like us, you're trying to get people aware that don't take it as a given to what you've been taught, because we're proving every day that what we've been taught not actually factual. Like, we're not the ones out here making claims in that sense. The education system is the one that's making the claim of a ball that's flying through space. They've assumed radius in the first place. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So the fact that we've now got learned individuals that are up for making observations, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what happened with your interview and how you're perceiving things?
Well, yeah, Dr. John has been, it's been great to get to know him and, his work. He really got me refocused on the word empirical when it comes to evidence. I think, his background being a PhD, a scientist, and there's somebody that's fully indoctrinated into the system. I mean, he went through, all of the years, got the credentials and that sort of thing. So if anybody is going to be defending their faith in a system, then, it should be somebody like that. And obviously a lot of his colleagues would be. Yeah. But him specifically, he's a gentleman that understands what the word science actually means. Okay. And this is what we all need to focus on. Anybody listening, go back and look at what the scientific process is. And we talk about it a lot, but let's really discuss, are we using the scientific process correctly? And I think that's what he does, because when he presents his observations and his tests and his conclusions, he does it based on those scientific principles. He says, well, here's the 3 premises that my whole test was based on. So if you're going to come to a different conclusion, first of all, you're going to have to show that your observations were different than what I've found. And here's exactly how I did it. Here's the tools that was used. Here's all of the data that was captured. So he's got all of the data. Here is exactly how I did it. So first of all, if you're going to come up with different data, you're going to have to show that you did, right? So that'd be number one. And then number two, if you're going to come to a different conclusion than I have, then you must disagree with these scientific premises. So he breaks it down really to the bedrock layer, the ground level of the science behind it. And he says, if you're going to come up with something different, then you're going to have to debunk these scientific premises that my whole conclusion is being based on. Okay. It's rock solid. Okay. It is rock solid what he is doing. He is going to be continuing to draw a lot of criticism from those that have a very strong faith in scientism, because it's going to rock their world, literally, in my opinion, because they're unable to. They're going to have to combat basic scientific premises that they do agree with, but the conclusions then that are built on that is really where the rubber is meeting the road. So specifically with Dr. John and the test that's coming up on February 2nd, which I'm so glad you're going to be there. I would love to be there. It's a little bit more of a day trip for me, but I'll be there in spirit for sure and watching on the live stream. But when he came out and showed the observations that he had made 8 centimeters above the tide over 15 kilometers.
It's pretty telling, isn't it?
It's pretty telling.
And what I love about Dr. John is he's addressing those other channels publicly. And he's sharing
on it, because I thought you mentioned a couple of those channels that he's listed. There's an actual list. He's like in the rap battles where they do the ciphers and they actually call out other rappers and they go, right, what are you bringing to the table? Like, are you coming? Are you good? You've been called out. Like, it's almost like wrestling, like, except this is for real. This is like real life observations, real life, repeatable, measured observations. Isn't that what we're all looking for? With
That's exactly.
People are asking me to bring to the table at Speaker's Corner. People are saying, well, what observations? What, because I'm not coming to Speaker's Corner with a claim. I'm coming to Speaker's Corner to show people the claim that's been made is false. People seem to want to know, well, what is it then? Where's the edge? Hold on. Wait. Okay? Before you lot want to start asking what this is, let's just get past the fact of what it's not. Like, can we at least have that done and get it socially acceptable to accept the fact that we've been lied to before we start reaching for all the possibilities of what it could be? Let's just identify what it's not. And already we're identifying.
I love when they come back with those questions, like, where's the edge? Okay, then where's the edge? Or all the other planets must be round. I say, well, you know what? Thank you. I can tell now that you are questioning, because you wouldn't answer that question. But you obviously are questioning what you've been told if you're coming back with that question. So first of all, thank you, because you obviously are an intelligent person. If you're coming up with those questions, that's what we all had. We had the same question.
We were all there once.
That means you're questioning what you were taught in school, and that means you're on the right path. So I appreciate it.
In my mind, that's a win. As soon as people stop taking what they've been taught as a given, if I had had £1 for every time someone, when I'm speaking to at Speaker's Corner, goes, this is a given, isn't it? This is a globe.
We all know it, yeah.
They kind of look at me like a lost child, like looking for their teddy bear. Like, it's just a given, isn't it? It's just, why wouldn't it be what I've been taught? Like, and you see their minds doing exactly what your mind. When you look.
Can I cite an example when Harry was on the street, and I think it was down in the last of the Devon ones. I forget which town that was. They were in the middle of a shopping centre, and this young guy, and he's probably late 20s, early 30s, came up and said, you could tell he's a really clever guy, but he'd done his degree, come up thinking he was going to challenge Harry. And he said, what about gravity? And Harry said, what about it? He said, well, it's centripetal force. And then he went into, that's Bry's equations, followed by something other equations. And Harry said, well, equations don't prove anything. They're just a language. They don't prove anything. And he said, how does your phone work? Complete knee-jerk reaction, lost the plot, glitched, and couldn't cope with that challenge. I thought it was hilarious. And Harry caught it on camera, and it was just so funny. I mean, he was a nice guy, but you could tell he really now got stuck, and the top of the top of the top of the physics chain, that's what happens. You get, unless
I consider it a win. Yeah, well, exactly. I consider it a win too if the person, or when I'm talking to them, if I can just get them to admit that they believe we live on a sphere, flying through space. If I can get them to admit that they're taking that on faith, then that's a win. And a lot of them will, in my experience, they will admit that. They'll say, "Yeah, I get where you're coming from. That I believe that. I don't know that. I believe it." And that's really where I try and start. I get them to try and admit. We get to a point where to separate knowing from believing. And I give them the quote, that believing is the enemy of truth, or the enemy of knowledge and things like that, and say, all right, so, that's kind of the first step, and get people to realize that it isn't a given, it's faith. You have faith in the system. You have faith in something that you're being told.
And Harry does that really well. Just the chase quickly, and he just gets there. Is that a belief or a knowing?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely good tactic.
I've got a couple of more questions for Paul, if that's all right with you, Robin.
Go ahead.
The first question I've got for you, Paul, just a couple more, if that's all right with you, is family. I want to know regarding family, how do you balance the flat earth efforts with your family, business, work life, etc.? Because I know it's a difficulty for us all in some respect.
Very difficult.
Could you give us some insight on that?
Well, my family is very supportive. They know, obviously, the time and energy that I spend. I'm a busy guy. They don't have a lot of downtime, and I like it that way. When it's family time, it's family. Sometimes I'll go a couple of days, you won't hear from me. I mean, I got stuff going on, and it's family time. I'm able to kind of intertwine. Making videos takes a lot of time. Anybody's done any editing, I know you guys know it. Putting together a video takes a lot of time. So it's nights, it's staying up late and getting up early. It's a labor of love. So that's the one thing that I really try to do as much as I can. Again, my wife may have other thoughts on it if I'm able to balance things from her perspective. But I think I do an okay job, or that's important that we maintain that balance, because I'm not going to be I'm not the type of guy that's just, I go in with hits, both arms, both feet, everything, because I have other obligations or responsibilities. I have 3 kids, and all of those stuff that's going on. I have to be present for that as well. So it's late nights and weekends.
Makers can relate to that. I think everything you just said is very, very relatable. I think with regards to making content, the time spent editing, the time spent making the content, if you're going out there and doing it and recording things, recording observations, it's just an incredibly time consuming thing, and people see a scratch of that on the content and don't often see the back work that goes into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Editing video takes a lot of time, and there'll be times where I'll spend hours on something and I'll just be so unhappy with it. I mean, you just start over, or just take a totally different approach, because I'm just not going to put my name on that thing. It was so bad, I mean, sometimes it comes out like that.
So tell us about TFR, Paul. What's the general content of TFR shows, and how can people reach them?
Yeah, the Truth Frequency radio show has been an absolute blast. I was so appreciative to the station manager, Chris and Cherie Gio, when they reached out to me. And I had a lot of fellow TFR hosts that put in a good word for me. So I appreciate that. So it was really just a blessing. So it was an hour-long show they offered me. It was right before Mark Sargent's show. So it was great that we can kind of go back to back. And so that's been obviously really big for me to kind of get, kind of draw from his audience a little bit too. I kind of reached out to everybody. Like, hey, Mark's show starts an hour early now, so come check me out. And then you can check out Mark after my show. But the premise of that show really is, between Noxie and I, was just to kind of talk about some of the latest things that are happening in the community. That's really where it started. We wanted to expand on things like when D Marble went up and did his laser test, or when he went up north and made observations, way up north in Alaska, got him on the show to talk about it. So people were, on the TFR side, which if you look at the stats, it's 3,000, 3,500 listeners pretty consistently all the time. There's a lot of people that are listening that aren't up to date on all this stuff. They're not in the community full time like a lot of us are, and keeping tabs on things. So highlighting some of these things. When Zach, his channel Good Times for All, made those observations across Lake Michigan, looking at the Chicago skyline, I wanted to get him on there. He was, I think, might have been the first guest. And then FE Core folks and Mike Cavanaugh and Robbie Davidson. I'm just thinking back to some of the people that have had on the show to, help create awareness around some of the projects and around some of the stuff that's going on, and kind of dissecting it and that sort of thing. And then obviously call in, having people be able to chime in and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of taken on a life of its own. At least I like to think it has. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know a lot of great people. And it's, as you mentioned, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time here in the U.S. on Tuesday nights.
And people can get that from just streaming straight from the website, tfrlive.com.
Yep, correct. tfrlive.com.
Fantastic.
Lovely. I didn't realize I had my mic on mute there. Weird. I want to ask one more question as well. I want to ask you what you'd like to see happen this year.
I'd like for the head of NASA to come forward and say, you got me.
Lovely.
Game over.
Nice.
You got us. And we're going to return all your money, $52 million a day. I haven't added up how much I've contributed to that, but there's probably people that have contributed a lot more than I have, but everybody gets their money back. That's what I'd like to see. No, in reality, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen. I'm not putting any faith in that whatsoever. But honestly, seriously, I really would like to see the continuation of Flat Earth mentioned in mainstream outlets, whether that's the news or, other people that have big circles of influence, celebrities, sports people. Every time they speak up, like Steph Curry did with the Golden State Warriors, even though he retracted 24 hours later, boy, they jumped on that fast. You could tell that was some serious damage control needed to be done there for sure. Just the pure reaction to it tells you everything we needed to know about the magnitude of what he said. I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Roxanne.
No worries. I was going to say, with people coming out, D Marble was interviewing an MMA fighter yesterday who's come out publicly and started to speak about it. I just think the floodgates are starting to open with people that are now in positions of prominence that are just going, actually, do you know what?
That's huge for the movement, because I'm the perfect example of, I didn't even know Flat Earth was a thing. I didn't know that there was a community that was growing and people were doing experiments, and I didn't even know this was all going on. It wasn't until somebody mentioned that to me that I started digging in. So when we get play on, big news channels, or a celebrity says something about it, there's a lot of disinformation online. But the smart people, the intelligent people, are going to see through that. And that's what I have faith in. If anything, I have faith in the intelligent people are the ones that are checking their ego at the door and are not taking the information on pure face value. They're digging in, they're checking things out for themselves. And so when somebody mentions something on a podcast or whatever, like Steph Curry did, I would have never heard that podcast in a million years. I don't listen to that podcast. I would have never even known. But it goes on every news channel and all over the internet that he's talking about it. Well, thank you very much. That's going to backfire on you, because more people are going to go, I got to check this thing out. Now I'm hearing about this again. A guy like that is talking about it. There must be something there. I'm going to go check it out for myself. It's just going to cause more people to go dig in, and the smart ones are going to figure it out.
Well, let's move on to the last conference in Denver. You had a slot there. Was it with Noxie too? Was it two of you?
Yeah, Noxie and I had a session in Denver. It was a lot of fun.
Tell us all about it. What did you present?
Well, there's a little bit of a backstory, and it did not go as planned whatsoever. We spent months planning a presentation, and the night before, basically, we had to start over. So Noxie had built a fluid bed, basically, and what that is it's a tub of sand with PVC pipes with air that's going to be piped right through the layers of sand, and it turns the sand into basically a liquid. It reacts just like anybody that's hasn't heard of this. Go on YouTube and search for hot tub sand. And you'll see how the sand just reacts just like it's water, and you're able to push stuff down into it, and stuff floats, and you can dive down. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so we were going to demonstrate that on a very small scale and how that relates to density and buoyancy, addressing the gravity theory. And so we had all this set up, but make a long story short, the Traffic Safety Administration here in the U.S. would not allow him to take this contraption on the airplane to Denver. So he was flying out the night before and got that confiscated and couldn't bring it. He also had in the same bag that was with the contraption, he had on his hard drive his video that we were going to present too. So,
poor guy, must have been in pieces.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we like a long story, really short. Now we stayed up all that night, and came up with the Plan B PowerPoint presentation to present. So we kind of pulled an all-nighter, and we talk a lot about that on our shows after the conference, so people can go check out the details there. It was pretty ugly, but the whole premise is the fact that again, what you can observe and test and repeat at home is understanding the separation forces, which Noxie calls decidial forces. Decidium being Latin for separation. Decidial forces that we observe with an object, and the natural reaction it has to try and separate itself from the fluid that it's contained in, and understanding that air is a fluid just like water, and it has the same properties. So objects are going to look to separate from that at 9.8 meters per second squared. And that is obviously true, we know, in the down direction, but it's also true upward at the same time, which is fascinating when it comes to this concept. So I encourage people to go check that out. Our presentation is on my channel. It's also on my website, and a lot more to come on that, because Noxie's putting together kind of a professional looking, sounding video documentary with his skills as a animator and a producer to kind of illustrate those points and drive them home. And I think it's some groundbreaking stuff. It's pretty exciting.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that. That sounds really, really good. So we would love to break some news on this podcast about what's happening in the next 9 months in the UK, Paul. So we're a day early, but we don't mind this. It's going to premiere on Thursday, and then we go live official on Friday. So I'm sure Dee and Gary let me off one day early. So if you're ready, Paul, why don't you announce what's happening in September?
Well, September, in case you didn't know, there's a little teeny convention going on. Well, in Europe, the whole month of September, you guys have got the market cornered there between the Globe Live Euro Tour and Jason and Harry there. Boy, that's going to be a lot of fun. But they're going to be wrapping up the UK leg of their tour on the 13th through the 15th of September. And the Flat Earth Convention, the UK version, is going to be at Kidderminster, right? Kidderminster, I think I said that correct. The 13th through the 15th of September at the Pioneer Center. And get your tickets now, and I'm really, really excited to announce that I will be speaking at the event. And I want you to everybody listening, go to feconvention.com and get your tickets. And I can't wait to meet everyone. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for being
here. You heard it here first. Thank you, Paul. We're super excited, and we'd love to see some of your work when you come into the UK. There'll be loads of people who want to see NASA getting demolished, and whatever you can bring to the table, we'd be totally honoured to have you. And on that note, we just want to acknowledge you, Paul, for the dedication you've put into Flat Earth. We really, really respect and thank you for that. But more particularly, how you've taken the time out to really break NASA's BS apart and systematically show everyone in extremely powerful ways with your videos how to tear it apart, because we can share it so easily, and we just want to acknowledge you for that and thank you for that.
Well, I sincerely appreciate the kind words. Thank you. I want to give credit to, Archer Sage, who really helped bring my level of understanding up to where to find this information. And I mean, we're all as good as the people we surround ourselves with, obviously. So I want to give credit to him and Mr. Scott Henderson. He deserves a ton of the credit for the moon landing research that he's done. And, he's my current partner in the Faking Space series. And we're going to be talking a lot about that this year as we continue to dig in and analyze what we were told happened in the 60s and 70s on the moon, which it didn't happen.
Yes, absolutely. And for those who are just digesting this on podcast format, why don't you break down some of the segments that you have on your podcast? For those that
the podcast. Yeah, so my podcast is called Dome Life. I just started it in, I believe it was August or September. Just started it. I've got 14 episodes now. I release one every week. So I usually have a guest or, kind of the main event, as I call it, every week. I've got Joe Garcia and Annie Riley is going to be on there soon as well. And talking about kind of like I do in TFR, just what's been going on, what they're involved in, creating awareness around that. And then the other kind of weekly segments I have is I check in every week with Mitchell from Australia. So I know Mitchell is going to be watching this. So Mitchell, I love you, man. He's my correspondent, and he lives completely upside down from me because we're on opposite sides of the globe. So I always start by asking him how is he able to do that? How does his car stick to the ground while he's driving and stuff like that? But so I call it down over with Mitch. I don't say down under because he's just over across the plane from me. So we check in every week. He's got some great tests and observations and experiments that he's planning and doing called Torque the Line. So we've been following that progress. Then the other segment, I have a Faking Space segment where I'm revisiting some of the stuff we've talked about here in each of the videos. And Pages on the Plane is what I call it. Kind of goes with Paul on the Plane. And right now I just happen to have it here. My copy of Robbie Davidson's book, Scientism Exposed. I go through a chapter every week and share, with folks. I've been reading through that every week as well. I think we're on chapter 11 now. So
I really enjoyed that.
A little bit of something every week I try to bring to the table. So I think it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope people are enjoying it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed last week's episode. You brought in the Book of Enoch, I think, which was a reference in the last chapter. So we're nearly close to wrapping up now, Paul. Roxanne, was there anything else you wanted to ask?
Other than really what your expectations really are for the next 12 to 18 months, what your expectations are with the whole of the truth community?
Well, I think the biggest impact is going to be the Globli Euro Tour. I mean, I'm just astonished at the plan that Jason and Harry, and I know you guys are involved as well, that you guys have laid out. I mean, the whole continent's going to get flat smacked at some level. So I think that 14,000-mile journey is going to make the biggest impact of the year. So I know that there is talks of trying to do something here in the States. And there's a website set up, and I don't have it in front of me. Maybe we could add it to the show notes or something like that once I locate it. But we're trying to get something like that going here in the U.S., and you can sign up on a per state basis. I'd love to see that emulated in North America, because that's what it takes. I mean, I just landed here in Seattle, where I'm going to be this week on business, and I took an Uber up here to the hotel, and I got 25 minutes with my Uber driver, and at the end of the conversation, he's a flat earther.
That's my favorite too. The Uber drivers are my favorite. I'm sorry.
I feel so sorry for my Uber drivers, because they have they are a captive audience. They can't do anything. They can't go anywhere. They just have to listen to me talk for 30 minutes, wherever we're going. So, and I, hand them the flyer or my business card or whatever. And And, that's where it takes, it's that one-on-one time that you get with people. And I just hope he goes home, and he admitted it. He said, he's like, yeah, he goes, I never even thought about it. That's what you always hear, guys. You always hear, oh, I never even thought about that. That's what we're trying to do, is get people to think about this, and it's going to change things. So everybody that's out there on the streets, and whether you're doing it in a chat room or whether you're doing it over email or you're doing it one-on-one, face-to-face, keep doing it, because we're waking up the world. And I want to be a part of it.
Awesome. I just want to say a quick reference to Harry. We love you, Harry, but he's actually going to take this year out of doing that. It was his big idea last year. He went into an editing cave for probably about a month, and what it took out of him being the sole driver, organizer, and everything last year just meant he probably was happy to pass the torch on.
He deserves the credit, though, for sure. He started something big.
He told us he said, I'm going to take a break, but I fully support what you're doing, and I'll donate.
So
his work, quote unquote. So
we love you, Harry. We love you.
Yeah,
absolutely. So on that note, Paul, is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't yet asked or mentioned tonight?
No, people want to get a hold of me. I'd love to hear from you. Best way to do that is to just, go to my website, paulontheplane.com, or send me an email, paul@paulontheplane.com. I love to hear from you. I get a lot of great emails, people just talking about faking space or whatever. And I just love getting emails. And if people would got a good flat earth story, let me know. I'd love to have you on the podcast sometime. So reach out to me and let's talk.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, on that, we've really enjoyed your company, Paul. Have a great business trip, and we look forward to seeing you back, if you can, on Thursday night when we go and premiere this podcast. Mm-hmm. So that one will be on my channel, Lifting the Lid, and we're going to take it in turns now. Been an absolute pleasure, Paul. We salute you, sir, and we can't wait to see you in person. So
thanks for having me. Had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And the music to send us off is a little bit of Little Lies from Fleetwood Mac. So enjoy, everyone, and I'll put some nice NASA fakery behind. Take care, Paul. All the
Excellent. Best. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Roxanne and Robin's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Spotify. And don't forget, if you subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, that's Lifting the Lid, or Roxanne the Globalist Denier, you'll be able to see us premiere. Be sure to check the show notes for today's guests, key links and channels, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Keep it warm.